So this is I guess a prop making video. I've always been very keen in sci-fi and props and building and making stuff. So this is kind of my garage here. It's a double garage, so it's quite a bit of space. Quite lucky to have that little walk around of the garage just before we start. As you can see, I've got some power tools here. Nothing fancy, just something that really gets me by. I've got a bunch of tools on the wall there, as you can see. Just trying to keep a bit organised. Kind of toys and junk there. Some of my ships, I've just laid them out because I've just made some custom bases. I'll do a kind of like a video on those if anyone wants to see that, on how I made the bases. And as you can see, I've got some statues that are about there and boxed up, rest of household stuff and whatnot. So it's a fairly nice working space. Trying to make a kind of a workman area for myself, kind of maybe eventually turn it into a man cave, get a couple of screens up, get some old consoles running. And I really have to sort out this area and make it a bit more cleaner and tidy to work. I love films in general. I do love my films, especially sci-fi. Holds a very special place in my heart ever since I was very young. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I mean, come on, who's not? It's always influenced me in my creativity. I'm also an artist, so I do portraits. I've got a lot of Star Wars portraits I've done, and I'm actually building a product at the moment for that, and I can also do a video on that if you like. But this particular video, get down to the point. Guardians of the Galaxy. Essentially, that's my second favourite universe. I love the characters, I love the vibrancy of the colours, and even the props they use. And this video is specifically about the Guardians of the Galaxy 2. So many people would have not probably noticed this particular prop, but I love it. I absolutely love this prop. It's worn by, I believe it's Starhawk, played by Sylvester Stallone. And he's only in the movie, probably a few minutes in total. Something really stood out to me in his character and in his design that I really, really loved. And I've always wanted to recreate that prop, but I just never knew how to do it. I don't think that prop's out anywhere. I don't think I've seen it on Etsy or anyway, maybe because no one really wants it. But you know what, I want it. So I thought, you know what, let's make it. I've got the tools here, got the equipment, let's do it. So the prop in question is, let me show you the comic version first. And you can see what I'm talking about. So you can possibly see there that he's got these kind of yellow kind of beams or lights or something going over his shoulders and across his head here. I have another one here. Yeah. Let's see if we can see that. I'm doing this all backwards, so bear with me. So again, there, yeah, he's flying through the air. You can see these kind of beams over his head and these over his shoulders. So obviously, when they've done the movie, they obviously thought about that, and this is what they came up with. And I think it's great. I think it's very subtle, but it's really looks good. So you can see that these kind of light beams that just go over his shoulder, essentially. Just there, goes over his shoulder, like that. Corners off at the top and comes down his back. Now I've got another reference point here. So that's a nice clean shot of kind of the size or the kind of shape we're looking for here. It attaches there to his chest, comes over at the back of his shoulder, points off, and then curves kind of down. Very subtle. The main thing that I was thinking about here is, how do I make that shape? How can I recreate this? So I went online, I started searching for, and obviously this is lit up, by the way, so I will be using LED strips to light that up. So I needed something to house those LEDs, but that's rigid and that I could bend. And I was looking at LED conduits, so kind of casing for LEDs. Normally come in thick kind of strips like that, but they're not really bendable. I guess I could cut into them, and I was thinking that to begin with, I'll cut them up a bit so I can just slightly bend. It's aluminium, I believe they're made out of. But then you're going to get these ridges on the sides, and I wasn't too happy about that. That would have been my second option. But then I came across this. Now, it is a conduit for LED strips. It's essentially a very thin, low profile strip. As you can see there. Very thin, very low profile. Exactly what I want, actually. And it's aluminium. And the best thing about this, it's totally bendable. You can bend this to any kind of shape that you want. Granted, if you bend it to in a specific point at a very hard angle, you won't be able to bend it back because it'll probably snap. but you can bend it once into a sharp angle and leave it there, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. I did not know these existed, and this is the main kind of base or structure for this project that I'm going to be using. You can get these off Amazon, I believe that's what I bought them off, but also eBay. They actually came in 1 meter long strips. I've cut this down to 50 centimeters, and that's exactly what I'm going to be using for this project. That's what I need. I've kind of used that as a reference and worked out that 50 centimeters is more than enough for my kind of body structure. If you buy one, they kind of are expensive. I think it's like $13.99 or something like that in UK pounds. That is, not dollars. I didn't think that was worth it, just buying one meter of these. So I bought a pack of 5 1 meters, and that I think I paid something around £25, £26. That's a good deal. So it works out each one, well, essentially for each of these projects, I only need half of this meter, so 50. So that essentially I'll get 10 of these sizes. So it works out pretty much for each of this project, probably £2-3 each, which is great, fantastic for prop makers. You know, you want to, the consumption of materials is probably the major factor in budget when making a prop. This houses, I believe, up to 12mm wide LED strips. So it houses for the big strips, and down to obviously as much as you want, because it's got kind of a conduit there. Now this has got a milky kind of coating to it, so it's got a diffuser, which is fantastic, exactly what I needed. It's just strange how this came out on my searches. So that base is aluminium, as you can see, and I can just peel away this milky white kind of diffuser, and it just kind of clicks and snaps into place within that aluminium frame, and you get a nice satisfying closure on that. Roughly a 20mm width, which, as actually looking at that reference pictures and images, I can see that's pretty much it. If you look at how that works to my body structure, that's thick enough. Now this is what we'll be using for the base unit. Okay, there is some kind of a supporting structure to his one, so you can kind of see there where you've got the strip, and then you've got like a supporting brace here, right? And that gives it a bit more rigidity out of most likely plywood. The reason why I use plywood, it's going to be thick plywood, probably 20mm, same thickness as this, is because, you know, it's quite a thin structure there. When you're cutting wood, especially if it's just general pine wood or oak wood, the grain runs in one direction, so making a thin structure is easy to snap or come apart. I've decided to make that out of a dense plywood. The way they make plywood is they put a layer of wood that's, you know, you've got fibres going this way, then you put another layer on top and it's going this way, and the next layer will go the opposite way, and it's kind of meshed together, I guess, and compressed. So even if you do a thin structure, you've got more rigidity and it kind of holds together. I absolutely adore this prop, and I haven't seen anyone wear it or try to build this online. Hopefully this is the first video, and you know, if anyone shares my passion in this kind of item here, it may be quite rare, like I said, but if anyone does, there you go, you can try this yourself. Right, that's the shape I want. Okay, so I'm thinking I'll base this on my shoulder. So let me get a measuring tape. As you can see in the picture, and I'll put that up again, it's longer towards the front here, comes to the back and drops. Now this is a 50 centimeter piece. Now I believe that this, I've based this on my body here, roughly at 20 centimeters. And I tried this with the tape previously, so I can tell you that that is pretty accurate to my body shape. So out of 50, I'll mark 20 centimeters, mark on the aluminium as well as on the plastic. I'm going to start bending. Now it's good to use I guess a cornered surface here, so you can get a nice clean bend. Now as you can see, that pretty much snapped the sidewalls, but that is okay, because that's what we actually need to do there to get that tight bend, because it is fairly tight. Okay, and then I'll look at the reference image, and I'm going to start to bend this into shape. Very small increments to begin with, just to get a nice even curve. So I don't want no kind of straight edges on this, because I want it to be a nice flowed curve as it is in the actual prop. So as if this was machined essentially. That's quite a nice even curve there. That's to begin with, right? This is one that I've actually previously done. And as you can see, that's all you're doing with it. And once you've got that ready, and I've actually got, this is a bit of a giveaway, I've actually put the structure in there. But I'll get to the part where I'm actually making that. So I can see that's the curve that I've essentially got there. And I curve that bit there. Just go to the back, and as you can see, once I wear a bit more of a thicker vest, this will kind of attach both to the back there and then to the front there. And you can see there, the scale's pretty much spot on there. So if I show you the actual one there, where he's wearing, and then I can show you kind of there. It's best I can do anyway, freehand. Okay, so that's the one I made earlier. And that's exactly how you do it. And then you just spend the same on the other side. And there you go. Okay, so that is pretty much, it's such a simple technique that I'm using here, just using my hands, no kind of tools required, to be honest, and that is as simple as that. And as you can see, that pretty much stays in that position there, and as does this, and they're pretty much identical. And that's all you need. So just remember, 20 centimeters length here, mark that point at the top, and then 30 for the rest, and that seems to work for me. So if you're going to do this at home, that's the measurements I used. Okay, so now to get onto this part here. So initially, to make the supporting brace, I used MDF. I thought that would be absolutely fine. How wrong was I? MDF is quite mushy. When you get to thin profiles like this, let me just show you actually. When you get to very thin profiles such as this, it becomes very weak. It's not the best material for this kind of problem. So let's get onto the profile. So I just eyeballed this really. So I was comparing that there, the supporting brace there, and this was the, I guess, the master kind of first attempt. And I thought that was pretty okay. You know, that is pretty okay in my opinion. It goes with the curves. So what I did, I actually traced. So I actually put that onto this plywood and I traced out the actual profile to get that fixed there. And it, as you can see, I just done this one in front of you, and you can see it fits pretty perfectly there. I'm glad that the curves are not so curved where the bandsaw would have to struggle, but these are very shallow profiles here, so you've got no worry about struggling to cut that. So it's simply a bandsaw. If you haven't got a bandsaw, you can use a jigsaw, that's not a problem. You can also use, obviously, just a manual saw. You don't actually need any of these kind of tools in your workspace. You literally just need a handsaw and I guess a Sharpie, and you're done. Now, how I attach this to the aluminium, as you can see on top there, I put 2 screws on there on the longer bit, and I put a single screw at the back bit. Now, what I've done underneath, I use my Dremel tool to cut the excess screws off. Now be careful with that. It produces a lot of sparks, and if you're not used to using Dremels, you know, you've got to hold it quite sturdily. So get some help if you need to do that. But as you can see there, they've kind of flushed the wood. I'm not worried too much about the finish at the bottom side because you won't see it, first of all. Secondly, this whole thing will be sprayed black, and it might even actually put a piece of black felt along the bottom just to give it a nice finishing touch. What I also did, just as a tip, it might be overkill, but when I cut out this supporting brace here, I smothered it with wood glue. So I used type 1-2 in this, and I just rubbed it in with my finger. It just makes it a bit more rigid in my opinion. It soaks into the wood, it really joins those fibres together, and especially plywood. You know, it's made in layers, so I wanted those layers to be tight. And it's not really necessary. I don't know if this, you know, I don't think this is going to be pulled around much or damaged or harmed, so it should be fine without it. But just a bit of a tip there, if you did want to make it a bit more sturdy, you know, rub some type 1 all around the exposed edges and also the other side of it. Let it dry, and you should be good to go. So what I did, I made sure I drilled pilot holes into this wood. So it's straight through the aluminium and then straight through the wood to line them up properly. Reason for that is the screws are going to make this piece of ply split, and it definitely will, because I actually did that. Right, so the next piece that I did was getting the diffused milky plastic into shape. So essentially all I did was I placed this side in, and then I just cut these grooves into the plastic, as you can see. So that would allow it to kind of bend and join. If you don't put those in, it's not going to sit right, and it probably won't even get into shape. You can see if I bend that now, it will join those two pieces there and sit nicely, and that's exactly what you want. As for the curve of this plastic is quite flexible, enough for these kind of profiles. This is not major curves here. The main thing you're worried about is that corner, and that's why you got to put these grooves in. LEDs. Orange was a bit too red for me, so I went with a yellow on eBay, where they sell yellow LED strip. Very simple LED strip here. You can cut it to length when you get it if it's too long. And it also comes pre-wired with a 9-volt battery, which is perfect. So this is ready to go, essentially. So now I've got to stick this on here. This is where we're gonna, of course, place our LED strip. Just really close up there. Okay. You can see where there's no LEDs here, and that's where I want the corner to bend. I don't want to bend it on the LED to damage it or anything like that, so kind of bend it on a free gap that you see. And push it down, just make sure that reaches the other side where you want it. Okay. I'm just going to peel. And there you go. You want to line it up pretty much in the middle if you can. And that is pretty much what you're going to do throughout the rest of this. So as you can see, just center it and stick it. And there you have it. So, all stuck on. The actual adhesive is actually really good. It's quite gooey and really positive. And you can see there, that's just the little lumps where the screws are, but it shouldn't interfere with the housing. Housing is quite curved over the top there. Nice and centered, as best you can. These are sitting nicely inside. And it's quite a clean looking prop actually. It looks fairly good, I think. If I spent more time in it, I could have put it better, but you know, it is what it is. I haven't got any reference points how to make this prop, so I'm just doing this off the fly really. There you go. It's quite nice actually. It's quite a sci-fi by itself actually. Like a, you know, you can see the actual LED dots there because it's quite shallow, but you don't have to worry about that, because what I'm going to do is kind of mask off the tape with all the patterns that I want, and spray everything kind of matte black. And then you won't really be able to see all of these kind of diffused areas. Yeah, fun look. Yeah. There you go. So I've gone to the reference material, stuck into Procreate, gone over where it's where the pattern should be. So that's the picture. That's my going over it. If I hide the original picture, and that's what I've got. I'm going to cover actually the areas where I do want there to be light. So these white areas here. I'm going to spray everything matte black. And then once I peel back that masking tape, you're going to get the light just coming through these areas. This is the next day now, so from that to that. So it came out actually really well. I thought I was going to really struggle with the pattern. It took a little while, but you know, just be patient, neat as you can. I will be putting a piece of felt all the way down the bottom just to finish that off nicely. But as you can see, it's come out better than I thought actually. And just to give you a comparison to the actual prop, as you can see, did my best to try and get that exactly how it presents on the actual prop. I think it came out quite nicely. Now the way I masking tape these off is I use Tamiya masking tape. It's incredibly durable and quite thin. You get different profiles, so you know there's a thicker and thinner one. So it gave that real clean line, as you can see. Now there was no reference to the back of this prop online, so I just made up this little line here, just in the middle, just to give it some more presence from behind. And there you go. So I think it's come out really well. I mean, on camera, I tell you what, this comes out totally different to what I'm seeing right now. I am seeing like a kind of more of an orange amber, much like this one. Actually pretty much identical to this one. But on camera, this comes out really pale yellow, which is really strange. I think in the movie they actually use CGI to actually light it up. I don't think they use real LEDs, because in the movie it actually flickers slightly. It glistens, I guess, not flickers. And actually the diffusion between these LEDs actually help give that illusion that it's flickering. You cannot see them much in person. It looks very strange on camera, I do say, but much better in person, I assure you. Let me turn the lights off and give you a bit of a darker view. There you go. So it's really bright actually. So when I do put this on my shoulder, which I'll demo in a second, you will actually see that it kind of lights my face up, which is really cool. So here we go. Just about there, I would say. And you can see that's pretty cool. Well, for my first attempt anyway, I'm sure I'll spend a bit more time on it. Maybe I can get it slightly better. But my first attempt, I'm quite pleased with that. And then you can see kind of a comparison. Oops, there you go. And as I mentioned before, these ends are going to be covered about up to there. So I'm not fussed about this kind of empty space, because I'm going to get a nice little housing to kind of match the screen use one. You can't really see it much, but it's kind of like a buckle housing or something like that. I'm sure I can find something. And that will also be coming about up to there. Okay. Let's give it a bit of a closer look. That's the, I don't know what to call these, I guess the Starhawk bolts, maybe lightning bolts, who knows what they are. It was quite straightforward. So the way I painted this, I actually primed this before painting it, because there is some flex to this, not much, but there is some flex, and I thought, you know, I don't want the paint to crack over time, so I put some grey automotive primer, very standard. I got it from Halfords in the UK. So just basic grey primer all over this. Then I hit it with some matte black paint. Finished it with just a clear coat, because I really wanted to protect the outer coating, because I know this is aluminium, that's plastic and that's wood. I just didn't want anywhere to flake off over time. Yeah, I will be moving more towards actually showing the process of actually building this and other props going forward. So thanks for watching. Drop a comment, drop a message if it's about dimensions or materials or paint, anything like that. Just drop a message and I'll try and get back to you. Thank you guys. Cheers.